האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. We're in the Zera Shimshon on Parsha Lech Lecha, and we are doing Os Chaf Aleph, section 21. And we're going to start by looking at a few psukim from the Parsha, and then we'll get right into the Zera Shimshon's piece. So these psukim are going to come from Perek Tet Zion, psukim Beis through Hey, and this is the Torah here is talking about the fact that Avraham and Sarah did not have a child for many years, and that ultimately led to Sarah convincing or telling Avraham to take Hagar, her maidservant, as a wife. So here are the psukim. Vatomer Sarai el Avram, and Sarai said to Avram, Hine no at Sarani Hashem miledes. Behold, now Hashem has prevented me or has held me back from giving birth. Bo no el shivchasi, consort now with my maidservant. Ulai ibonem imena, perhaps I will be built up from her. Vayishma Avram lekol Sarai, and Avram listened to the voice of Sarai. Vatikach Sarai eshes Avram as Hagar hamitzris shivchasa, and Sarai, the wife of Avram, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her maidservant. Miketz eser shanim l'sheves Avram be'eretz Canaan. After 10 years of Avram having moved to and living in Eretz Canaan, vatitenosa le'Avram isha lo le'isha, and she gave Hagar to Avraham, her husband, to be for him as a wife. Vayovo el Hagar vatahar, and Avram consorted with Hagar, and she became pregnant. Vatera kiharasa, and she saw that she was pregnant. Vatekal gevirta be'eneha, and her mistress, meaning Sarah, became demeaned in her eyes, or became lowered in her eyes. Pasuk, hey, the last pasuk. Vatomer Sarai el Avram, and Sarai said to Avram, Chamasi alecha, my injustice, the injustice that happened to me, is on you. Anochi nosati shivchasi bechekecha, I gave my maidservant into your bosom, or to be with you. Vaterek hiharasa, and she saw that she became pregnant. Vaekal be'eneha, and I was lowered in her eyes. Yishpot Hashem beini uveinecha, Hashem should judge between me and between you. So the Zera Shimshon, there are several phrases in these psukim, several kind of points in these psukim that the Zera Shimshon is going to explain in this piece, and explain them in such a way that they are can be understood in a deeper way than we would normally read them. So let us begin. Pasuk. The pasuk says, "Hine no atzarani Hashem miledes bo no el shivchosi." This is the part of what we just read. Behold, Hashem held me back from giving birth. Come now to my maidservant. Ulai ibonem imena. Perhaps I will be built up from her. V'chulei, etc. Yesh meforshim. There are some people who explain shekavonas Sarah, that the intent, that Sarah's intent, Hayisa, was shehoil shahamis palel al chavero, since we know from Chazal that a person who davens for his friend, v'hu tzorech la'oso davar, and he needs the same thing that the friend needs, hu ne'netechila, he is answered first. Baba Kama, you can see that's a quote from Gemara in Baba Kama. So the Gemara over there states that if a person needs a certain thing and knows another person who needs that same thing and davens for that other person, then his tefillah or her tefillah will be answered first for himself or herself before the friend, before the prayer for the friend, before that prayer is answered. Aval kosher, afhi bihispalala. So too Sarah in her praying al Hagar on Hagar tiya nenes techila should have been answered first. Aval kosher, but this is difficult. Shalom matzinu shehispalala Sarah al Hagar. We don't find any explicit mention that Sarah did, in fact, daven for Hagar to conceive. The itema shehispalala, if you say that Sarah did daven for Hagar to conceive, lama lo nenes hi techila, why was Sarah not answered first? According to what Chazal taught us in the Gemara in Baba Kama, if Sarah, who desperately wanted to be blessed with a child, daven for Hagar, that Hagar should become pregnant and should conceive and have a child, then according to the rule of the Gemara, Sarah should have been answered first. But of course, Hagar was answered first, and Hagar gave birth to Yishmael, and it was only much later that Yitzchak was born, that Sarah's prayers and Avram's prayers to have a child together were answered, and Sarah gave birth to Yitzchak. So the Zera Shimshon is saying that according to the people who say that Sarah's kavana when she gave Hagar to Avram was that she would daven for Hagar and then she would be answered first. The problem is that we don't find clear evidence that she did daven for Hagar to become pregnant, and B, if she did, how come Sarah's prayers were not answered first? V'yesh lomar, and we can say, this is the second paragraph, Sarah hayasasvura, that Sarah thought she'ikuv herayon shelo, that the reason her pregnancy was prevented, ba mitzad Avraham, actually came from Avraham's side, shelo hayaroi leholid, because he was not able to give birth. He was not able to produce a child. He was not potent. Umikol makam, and nevertheless, Bachara nafsha, she chose with her soul, litain lo as Hagar, to give to him Hagar, her maidservant, kedei lehispalel achar kach el Hashem, in order to be able to daven afterwards to Hashem, sheyitain lo bonim me Hagar, that Hashem should give to him, to Avraham, sons from Hagar. So Sarah, even though she thought that Avraham couldn't bear children, and that's the reason that the two of them hadn't had a child in all the years that they were married, nonetheless, she gave Hagar to Avraham, thinking she would then have be able to daven for Avraham, that he would be able to have a child with Hagar. Umitoch kach tihiyot hinenes techila, and through that she would be answered first. Avraham yolid af ima, that Avraham would be able to conceive a child with her. V'zehu she'omra ulai iboneh mimena, and this is what she actually meant when Sarai said, perhaps I will be built up from her, from Hagar, meaning ulai yitztarech, perhaps it will be necessary, she'ani espalel bishvila ubishvil Avraham, that it will be needed that I will daven for Hagar and Avraham, for the two of them to have a child. Avalim Hagar lo hutzrach lezeh. But it turned out that this was not necessary for Hagar with Avram to have a child, because the pasuk says, "Vayovo el Hagar vatahar," and Avraham consorted with Hagar, and she immediately became pregnant. So there was no need, there was no holdup, there was no delay that would have required Sarai to daven for the two of them to be able to have a child. Hagar conceived immediately. Umiyad, and right at that point, when Hagar conceived so easily and so quickly, Vatekal Gevirta, then Hagar viewed Sarai in a lesser way, in a lower way. Sarai was demeaned in Hagar's eyes. Next paragraph. V'Sara nisra'ama im Avraham, And after this occurred, Sarah complained or argued, quarreled with Abraham. The Amralo, and she said to him, Chamasi alecha, my injustice, what has happened to me, that my maidservant is treating me with disrespect, is on you, Avram. This whole situation is your fault. Shelo hispalalta ela bishvilcha, because you only davened Abraham for yourself to be able to bring a child into the world. She'amarta, because you said, and this is a reference to Psukim back before our story regarding the bris bein habisarim, regarding that incident. Sarah said, you, Abraham, said to Hashem, matiten li, what can you give me? Ve'anochi holech ariri, and I am going without a child. I don't have a child. Hashem came to Avram and said, have no fear, I will protect you. You'll have great reward. And Avram said, what reward can I be given that can be truly meaningful to me when I don't have a child? I haven't been able to bring a child into the world. VeHaKadosh Baruch Hu Heishiv Lecha, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu responded to you, Lo Yirosh Chazeh. This person, meaning a reference to Eliezer, who Abraham had said, the only person who can inherit me and take over from me is my servant, Eliezer, my faithful, loyal servant. So Hashem responded and said, Eliezer, yes, it's true, he's your faithful servant, but he will not be the one to inherit you. You will, in fact, have a child. Shma mina. So Sarah thought, we learned from this dialogue between Hashem and Abraham, Shelo chashavta ela sheyeh lecha ben yoresh nachala. Abraham, you made the point that you didn't have anyone to inherit and take over from you. And that's what you were concerned about. That's what you were focused on. V'lo chashavta klum olai. And you weren't thinking at all about me. Sheyeh lecha ben mimeni, that you should specifically have a son from me. Sarah took away from the dialogue between Avraham and Hashem in the bris bein habesarim that Avraham's primary and perhaps sole concern was that he had not merited bringing a child into the world who could inherit from him and take over after him. But he didn't appear to mention Sarah. And he didn't appear to have Sarai in mind that the child should specifically come from the union of Avraham and Sarai. Shma mina. So the reasoning of Sarah continues. She'ena tachoshev osi l'klum. You, Avraham, apparently don't think of me at all in terms of the importance of having a child with me. That is not apparently of primary importance to you. And this kind of attitude that Avraham, you exhibited, Sarah said, this is what brought about a situation in which Hagar acted in a demeaning way. And Hagar denigrated me because she saw that you yourself were focused on having a child. And it could be a child with Hagar, not necessarily a child with me, with Sarah. So Zera Shimshon says that was Sarah's complaint. V'im tomar, and if you say, she'ato hayisa sover, this is still the train of thought that Zera Shimshon's giving us in Sarah's mind. And so Sarah says, and if you would say to me, Avraham, she'ato hayisa sover, that you thought that you, Avraham, thought that the fact that we hadn't had a child for so many years came from either me or from you. If you thought it wasn't necessarily a problem hold up on your side, but it could have come from either one of us, and you did not, Avraham, you did not want to ask too much from Hashem. Rak mashehoya muchrach levad, only that which is necessary. Dumya lemasha kosua tosus prepare test mitzia, similar to something, to an idea that Tosfos brings down in the 9th parak of Bava Metzia. She'ein HaKodesh Baruch Hu mekabel hatfila, that Hashem does not accept the prayer, mimi shemispalel, from someone who davens, sheyitzlach kol ma sheyizra, or sheyatzliach kol ma sheyizra, that every single thing the person plants should be successful. So Tosfos suggests if a person makes a prayer, davens to Hashem, that every single thing he plants should be successful, which would be a very rare occurrence, that a farmer who's planting so many different things and in such large quantities that every single thing should be tremendously successful. If a person davens like that, that's a very unlikely occurrence, im lo b'derech nes, unless a miracle were to occur. Then in such a case, Hashem does not answer that person's tefillah. They're asking for too much. They're asking for something that is too close to being a nes, a miracle, if it happened. Aval im mispalel al davar echad bilvad. But Tosfos says if a person davens for one thing, Zahainu, which would mean shiyatzlichu chitim osa orim, that he says, I planted wheat and barley, and Hashem, please make it so that my wheat is successful, or make it that my barley is successful. But he doesn't ask Hashem for every single thing he plants to be successful. Shelo, his plantings, az dafka mekabel tfilasa. So it says, then specifically when a person davens like that in a more moderate fashion, or a more reasonable fashion, you might say, then specifically Hashem answers and accepts his prayer. So according to the Zera Shimshon, Sarah, in continuing her thought process, says to Abraham, I feel what has happened to me and the way Hagar is treating me is because of you, because you showed that you were only interested in davening for yourself and you didn't daven for me. And if you answer my point and you say, yes, that's true, because of the idea of not davening for too much and not saying to Hashem, if I, Abraham, am not able to bring a child into the world, please make it possible for me to do so. And if Sarai is not capable of bringing a child into the world, please make it capable for her to do so. And if Abraham, you thought that's asking Hashem for too much, and Hashem, according to the Tosfos in Bava Metzia, doesn't answer that kind of prayer, then umishum hachi lo hispalalta ella alecha. And because of this, Avraham, you only daven for yourself. You wanted to be moderate in your tefillah. You did not want to ask too much. You did not want to make an extreme request. In Cain, if so, haim devarim hamasurim lalev. Then those are things which are given over to the heart, meaning that's a private matter in your davening and your praying to Hashem, Sarah says. She'eno yodea bohem ela hamakom, that no one else could know about your private personal cheshbonos, your private personal calculations in terms of how you phrased your prayer, your davening, your tefillah to Hashem. V'lochein, and therefore Sarah said, Yishbod Hashem beini uveinecha. Hashem should judge between me and you. Meaning the Zera Shimshon is saying, when we first read those words, Hashem should judge between you and me, that Sarai said to Avram, we take it at face value. She's saying, she's complaining to Avram, she's making a point to Avram, and she's saying, you haven't treated me fairly, you haven't treated me with the respect that I deserve, and therefore Hashem should judge between you and me. So the Zera Shimshon says, no, it's much more than that. Sarai is saying to Avraham, I've explained to you why I'm angry with you and why I think you were only davening for yourself and how wrong that was and how hurtful that was that you thought of that, but you didn't think of dafka, of specifically davening to have a child with me. And that's why I'm upset. And then she continues and says, and if you'll answer me, that you had a specific reason, a very appropriate reason to do so, well, then only Hashem can judge that. Hashem yishpot. Hashem should judge between me and between you, because then my claim, then my reason that I'm upset would not apply any longer, because you would have had a legitimate reason to daven for yourself and not for me as well. But only Hashem can know that. So Hashem yishpot beini uveinecha. Hashem should judge between the two of us. Just now to go back to the original point that the Zera Shimshon made, which I think leaves us with such a vital lesson, and that is, as he quoted the Chazal to say, when we have anything that we feel it's important to daven for, the ability, the mitzvah, actually, the importance of stopping for a moment and thinking to ourselves, well, are there other people with this same problem? Do I know of other people who it would be appropriate for me to daven for the same thing? I have a certain need, and they also have a certain need. If I have a certain need in the area of parnasa, or in the area of raising children, or in the area of any particular kind of need and need of a bracha from Hashem for a certain thing, to stop and ask ourselves, challenge ourselves, well, who else has this kind of need? Who else can I daven for Hashem to help them? And then the Gemara says that brings such an added power to a person's tefillah, that they will be answered, their tefillah will be answered even before their prayer for the other person. Both the tefillah, of course, God willing, is answered for both people, but it's such an important thing to think about whenever we daven for a need, that we think of other people and their needs as well. Yasher koach to everyone for joining, and we're going to do our best. I apologize for not being able to give this do this piece on Sunday night. We'll hope to be back on schedule this coming Sunday, Amir Hashem, and hopefully everyone can join us.